So Goosebumps doesn't really need an introduction, right?
I cannot stay.
What was that all about?
Fine, I'll introduct it.
It's Sonic.
Hello, I'm R.L. Stein. I write the Goosebumps books.
Goosebumps is a popular series of children's spooky books that started in the 90s by Scholastic and this guy R.L. Stein.
Hello.
These stories are mostly about kids living kid lives and having regular kid problems, until some sort of external spooky force comes and threatens their kid way of life. And as most things marketed towards children, it eventually ended up on television. Yay!
Viewer beware, you're in for a scare.
That's right, from 1995 to 1998, 74 episodes, depending on how you count them, were released, and as a kid I thought most of them were pretty damn spooky and cool.
Thank you.
Beyond normal.
But now in hindsight, with nostalgia goggles removed, well, some episodes kinda suck.
It's so overdone.
But worry not, dear viewer, for Be Normal is here to alleviate the pain of watching bad 90s children television by doing it for you. Now saddle up your slappies, settle your spooksies, and join me in looking at the 5 goosebumpiest episodes of the first season of Goosebumps. "12-year-old Michael is fed up with being his little sister's proverbial punching bag. And in an attempt to get her into trouble with their parents, decides to frame her for vandalizing their dad's new cuckoo clock. The titular cuckoo clock of doom. But when Michael's sabotage starts sending him backwards through time, he has to figure out a way to save himself before he gets unborn.
Today I'm 6. Tomorrow I may be nothing.
Now, the Cuckoo Clock of Doom might be a contender for one of the sillier titles within the Goosebumps library, but it is definitely one of the better told episodes, with a more compelling story, suspense, and honestly just the shittiest little sister ever.
I told you he was a credge. That's jerk spelled backwards, you credge. He won't leave me alone.
Have you ever tried simply turning off the TV, sitting down with your children, and hitting them?
Although Cuckoo Clock of Doom does lack a bit in the effects department, this is easy to overlook as how very few effects were needed to tell the story. I do, however, ironically love this nightmare sequence, though. The Girl Who Cried Monster is probably the 3rd best known Goosebumps thing, in my opinion. Maybe 4th or 5th, depending on who's asking. And it is the story of a girl who is apparently known for crying wolf.
Randy, haven't you ever heard of the razor-toothed toe biter?
Oh, I wonder what gave that away. Wolf crier Lucy one day makes the shocking discovery that her local librarian is in fact a metaphorical wolf, i.e. a monster. And much like the boy who cried wolf, nobody believes her.
There's a monster in the library! Lucy, please.
And let that be a lesson, kids. People who cry in glass wolves shouldn't be crying in the first place. Many thrills and suspense ensue as Lucy faces the perilous monster in order to get the evidence for her claims. And honestly, isn't this just some of the coolest early exposure to body horror you can imagine? Oh, I'm just drooling looking at those eye stalks, mister. And without spoiling too much, The Girl Who Cried Monster was the first time I felt I experienced a real twist ending.
Mr. Mortman, why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow night?
Lucy's been talking a great deal about you. It'd be nice to get to know you better.
Goosebumps changed all the rules for me as a little kid. This must have been how people felt for the first time seeing the Twilight Zone in the 60s. But for kids. Of course, an episode about old Mr. Slapwell Slappington would be on this list. Night of the Living Dummy, Part 2. And no, there is no Part 1. It is the story of Amy and her new replacement dummy named Slappy, who, after some magic words, starts running amok throughout the house, causing mischief and hurt feelings.
Slappy?
And how about that mother of yours? She went to a store and asked the clerk if he had anything her size, and he told her to try the freight elevator.
Me?
But it's not me, it's him.
And as you would assume, nobody believes Amy when she claims innocence.
What is going on up here?
Slappy grabbed the leash and he wouldn't let go.
What?
You're such a liar! A big fat liar!
The very idea of toys, dolls, or inanimate objects coming to life is always pretty creepy, regardless of the
propaganda that the mainstream media is trying to sell you. They are not friendly, they are not wholesome.
And Night of the Living Dummy Part 2 is no exception. I mean, there is a reason why Slappy pretty much became the face of all things Goosebumps for a while there, you know.
Oh, shucks. You're giving me... Oh, what's the word? Goosebumps.
Truly an unsettling episode with real scares, stakes, and honestly some of the creepiest stuff that was ever broadcast to children.
Hey, Sarah. Wanna play?
Of course, it stands to reason that most stories that are two-parters would probably, or usually, turn out a little better than the single-episode counterparts. Usually.
Go back! Go back! Run for your life!
Get out of here, Terror Tower. Nobody likes you. But trust me when I say... Stay Out of the Basement is the cream of the crop when it comes to Goosebumps. Margaret and Casey are left alone with their botanist dad for a couple of days, with the simple and clear instructions of...
Stay out of the basement!
But do they listen? No! The kids make dark discoveries of strange jungle-like life, and we learn of scientific experimentation, strange behavior, and a growing sense of dread and unease as we delve into the mega gross body horror that is strangely fine for children to see. Oh, it's the green blood, you see. If any of this was red, this would never have aired. And because this is a two-parter, the story and the atmosphere really has time to breathe and grow. The second part dealing mostly with the kids confirming their suspicions regarding their dad, with some scenes being genuinely tense, even viewing it as an adult. The episode, Stay Out of the Basement, is a beautiful blend of Reanimator and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I mean, you can't tell me this dad isn't channeling the very spirit of Jeffrey Combs.
Now, I'm going to try to explain this to you as simply as possible.
Broken the 6 to 12 minute barrier. I've conquered brain death.
You're just concerned about me.
Do you agree that he's dead now? Do you agree that he's dead now?
So first of all, big disclaimer, the last one on the list isn't the Haunted Mask.
Explain yourself.
The Haunted Mask is great. It's amazing.
And
it is probably the absolute best episode of Goosebumps there is. Definitely a lifelong favorite. It has great acting, it has great themes, it has great masks.
I'm sorry, young lady, but these masks are not for sale.
But I'm not gonna talk about it here. I might someday give that a full episode, but right now we're talking about not the one episode everyone knows is good. So I guess The Haunted Masks gets an honorable mention, but it's also getting booed off the stage for being too good. But The Werewolf of Fever Swamp, another two-parter, and the final story of the first season, is a story about Grady Tucker, who moves to Fever Swamp with his scientist parents in order to study how deer would adapt to swamp life.
Up until a couple of days ago, they had never seen a swamp before. Now your mom and I get to study how they're going to adapt.
Where'd the rest of the deer go? Gator got him. I said, Gator got him. And so, with the dread that comes from an eerie swamp, a mysterious hermit, and a newly befriended dog, Grady must come to grips with the reality of living in an area where a werewolf might be on the prowl. Which, of course, his parents don't believe him about.
Now listen, there is no such thing as a werewolf.
Werewolf of Fever Swamp strangely feels like it might be too good to be part of Goosebumps. It honestly feels like it could be a pretty decent made-for-TV movie.
Professor, we have reached a balance of 49% goose to 49% bump, with only a 2% error for childish antics.
Good Lord, we've achieved it. Spooky symmetry. Or at least it's on the same level of quality as Haunted Mask. So that's pretty high praise. Oh, and the werewolf suit looks pretty cool too. And again, simply having double the amount of time of a standard episode to let scenes build and grow and breathe really makes a world of difference when it comes to the quality of these episodes. Except for Terror Tower. I don't like Terror Tower. Thusly and therefore, I dub The Werewolf of Fever Swamp the final best episode of Goosebumps Season 1, if you don't count The Haunted Mask. Huzzah and hurrah to you, O 90s television show. And there we have it, what I think are the 5 essential episodes of the first season of Goosebumps. Which would you have picked instead from Season 1? Tell me. It's the camera one, isn't it? Or the piano one? Either way, if you like what I do, I always get a dopamine rush when people do the whole liking, commenting, subscribing thing. So perchance you humor me and give those buttons a prod, eh? And I will see you in the next video, as long as we all agree Terror Tower can go suck a turd.
It's really not.